Singapore Airport. Hundreds of people begin to gather around a gigantic passenger plane where they will spend nearly 19 hours on board without a single stopover. It looks like a regular international flight. You sit in your seat, watch a movie, take a nap, and a short time later, you are already on the other side of the planet. But the reality is quite different. During this flight, the aircraft covers almost half the globe, crosses multiple climate zones, and flies through the night into a new day, all while passengers remain confined inside a metal machine at an altitude of 11 kilometers. It might seem like modern planes have long been adapted for these journeys, but there is a problem most people don't even imagine. The hardest challenge isn't fatigue or boredom, it's the air inside the plane. Let's find out why pilots constantly change the route during the flight and what happens to the human body after nearly 19 hours at an altitude of 11 kilometers. A passenger in the 13th row opens a water bottle, takes 2 sips, and turns on a comedy on the screen in front of her. A woman across the aisle adjusts her pillow and closes her eyes. It seems to her that she has a normal night ahead. Why did all these people agree to spend 19 hours on board without a stopover? The answer is simple. They are flying from Singapore to New York. This is the longest non-stop flight on the planet. The passengers here are mostly top business executives and diplomats. For them, spending 19 hours in a single seat is much more advantageous than losing nearly an entire extra day on exhausting connections at transit airports in Tokyo or Europe. Time is money, and this flight proves it literally. The impact on the human body: extreme dehydration. People around ask for chicken with rice, flip through magazines, and fall asleep. But at this exact moment, while a man fast-forwards his movie to the 10th minute, his body imperceptibly begins to lose water. Over the 19-hour journey, every passenger on board will literally lose 2 liters of pure fluid. That is the volume of a large water bottle. And they won't lose this moisture through sweat, but simply while sleeping, breathing, and talking. We usually fear severe turbulence or an engine failure, but the main and most dangerous enemy of humans on this flight is already inside the cabin: the local air. At an altitude of 11 kilometers, equivalent to stacking 21 Ostankino towers on top of each other, there is absolutely no humidity outside the metal skin of the aircraft. A freezing -50°C wind blows out there, making it impossible to breathe. Because of this, an artificial atmosphere is created inside the plane, but technology cannot make it as soft and humid as on Earth. In standard homes, air humidity is around 50%. In the Sahara Desert, this rate drops to 20%. Inside the airplane cabin, humidity drops to just 5%. This is 4 times drier than the hottest desert on the planet. In essence, passengers spend 19 hours sitting inside a massive, invisible blow dryer. Effects of the cabin environment on the body. Loss of taste. With such extreme dryness and artificial pressure, the taste receptors in the mouth dry up. They stop functioning at 1/3 of their normal capacity. Airlines know this trick, so they intentionally add 1.5 times more salt, pepper, and spicy seasonings to in-flight meals, so the food doesn't taste like flavorless cardboard. Thicker blood. Due to the lack of moisture, the blood becomes thicker. It becomes difficult for the heart to pump it through the vessels, so it starts beating faster, doing the work of 2. The passenger begins to feel a dull ache at the back of the head. Eyelids grow heavy, and their eyes feel like fine river sand was thrown into them. The danger of alcohol. If a passenger decides to have a glass of wine to fall asleep faster, it will only make things worse. Alcohol dehydrates the body even faster, thickening the blood further. Normal sleep turns into a heavy, comatose slumber, leaving the person with a severe headache upon waking. Microfissures and mucous membranes. The mucous membranes of the nose and throat dry out so much that microfissures appear. Through these tiny cracks, any virus can easily enter the body. The air ventilation and purification system. What saves the 300 people on board is the fact that this dry air is in constant motion. It never sits still for a single second. Special pumps beneath the floor continuously extract air from the cabin, purify it, and replace it with fresh air. But where does this fresh air come from, when outside there is nothing but a freezing vacuum and a lifeless void? It is impossible to carry a large enough supply of oxygen for 300 people on a 19-hour journey. A tank of that size would weigh as much as an entire cargo truck and take up all the baggage space. Instead, the plane captures air directly during the flight, drawing it from the outside and transforming it into breathable air right under the passenger's feet. Extreme compression. The massive engines scoop up tons of atmospheric air and compress it with enormous rotating blades. Following the laws of physics, this heavy compression instantly heats the air to plus 200 degrees Celsius. Air bleeding. The ventilation system bleeds off part of the superheated air from the engines before it burns along with the aviation fuel. Ozone converter. At this altitude, the air contains dangerously high levels of ozone. If this gas enters human lungs, it causes severe coughing and internal burns. A metal box called an ozone converter transforms this dangerous ozone into standard, safe oxygen. Cooling. Under the belly of the plane, powerful aviation air conditioners capture the freezing outside wind and use it to slash the temperature of the superheated stream from plus 200 degrees Celsius to plus 20 degrees Celsius. Only after this rigorous process is the pure air directed into the cabin through the plastic vents above the passengers' heads. Recirculation and filtration. Vents near the floor suck out the stale air. The system retains half of this used air, mixes it with a fresh portion from the engine, and sends it through a second cycle. Before returning to the cabin, it passes through hospital-grade filters, the same type used in operating rooms, that trap bacteria, skin particles, hair, and microbes. The air inside the plane is completely renewed every 3 minutes. This means passengers on board breathe a cleaner mixture than residents of major cities on Earth. However, this system runs non-stop and demands a colossal amount of energy, burning precious fuel. The weight and fuel paradox. To stay in the sky for 19 hours without stopping, the plane requires an enormous amount of fuel. Before takeoff, 165,000 liters of aviation kerosene are pumped into its wings and hidden tanks beneath the floor. To put it into perspective, this volume is enough to completely fill 2 standard large cargo trucks to the brim. This fuel load weighs more than the empty plane itself, including all its seats, galleys, and heavy engines. This is where engineers face the ultimate paradox of long-haul aviation. A heavy plane cannot take off without fuel, but to carry 300 people to the other side of the planet, pilots must lift a massive mountain of fuel into the air. Consequently, during the first 5 to 7 hours of the flight, the engines run at maximum power purely to carry the fuel that will only be used at the end of the trip. It is a vicious cycle. The war on onboard weight. Because every extra kilogram costs a fortune, airlines have launched a brutal war against weight on these flights. No first class. You won't find luxury first-class suites with heavy wooden partitions, wide sofas, and private showers. The entire cabin is split into just 2 zones, business class and premium economy. Composite materials. The seats are manufactured from lightweight composite materials and carbon fiber, stripping away all unnecessary metal parts and mechanisms. Going fully digital. There are no paper magazines or thick product catalogs. All entertainment and reading materials are digitalized on the screens. Even the pilot's flight documentation, which used to fill 2 large leather bags and weigh about 30 kilograms, has been replaced by 2 standard tablets. Lightweight utensils. Forks, spoons, and knives are made of a special thin plastic or lightweight metal. Plates are paper thin, and the meal service carts weigh half as much as standard airport carts. Calculated water. Flight attendants do not carry excess water for toilets and sinks. The amount is calculated by a computer, literally drop by drop for each passenger. Even with these strict restrictions, the plane takes off weighing around 280 tons, heavier than 7 large, fully loaded dump trucks. Half of this weight is fuel, which slowly burns away minute by minute, making the plane lighter only in the second half of the journey. In the cockpit, the hunt for jet streams. In the passenger cabin, the lights are dimmed. People put on sleep masks and try to rest, but behind a small door at the front of the plane, the work is intense. Pilot duty for 19 consecutive hours is too grueling for a human being, so there are 4 pilots on board, 2 full crews. They rotate shifts on a strict, computer-calculated schedule. While 2 pilots keep their hands on the controls, the other 2 rest in a secret steel compartment built right above the first rows of business class. It has no windows, but features 2 full-sized beds equipped with seatbelts, so no one falls out during severe turbulence. Up in the cockpit, pilots are constantly altering the flight path. The plane does not fly in a straight arrow. Over the 19-hour journey, the planet's weather changes drastically. In the beginning, when the plane is at its heaviest, sudden air bumps put dangerous stress on the wings and fuselage. To avoid this, pilots become hunters of jet streams. What are jet streams? They are massive, invisible rivers of fast-flowing air in the stratosphere at an altitude of 11 kilometers. The wind speed inside these currents frequently reaches 200 kilometers per hour, faster than a race car on a track. If a pilot catches a tailwind jet stream, the powerful wind pushes the aircraft from behind. The plane's ground speed increases instantly, saving tons of kerosene and cutting total travel time by up to 2 hours. Because these aerial rivers constantly shift coordinates, the cockpit computer receives real-time weather updates from satellites every minute. Pilots analyze charts, communicate with air traffic controllers on the ground, and recalculate the route mid-flight, requesting changes in altitude by 1 kilometer to dodge headwinds or bypass storm clouds. Every maneuver is a jewelry-precise mathematical calculation. Final destination, New York. A soft chime sounds through the cabin, and the seatbelt signs light up. Passengers wake up, store their pillows, and return their seats to the upright position. Flight attendants quickly move down the aisle, collecting the last empty cups and checking overhead bins. Over 19 hours, the plane has traveled a distance of 15,000 kilometers, crossing multiple time zones and climate barriers. Through the dense gray clouds outside the window, the outlines of houses, highways, and roads begin to appear. The pilots switch to manual control, level the heavy aircraft, and line up the nose with the runway at New York's airport. A few minutes later, the landing gear tires hit the tarmac with a loud roar. The computer engages the engine thrust reversers, the plane brakes hard, and the longest non-stop flight in the world comes to a successful close. Passengers grab their coats and bags, heading down the jet bridge into the terminal. Most feel nothing more than normal fatigue, a slight thirst, or jet lag, completely unaware of the mind-bogglingly complex engineering project they just took part in. For 19 hours, they lived inside a massive survival simulator. Outside the thin metal skin reigned a freezing, deadly void, but automatic systems maintained a safe, breathable oasis inside, proving that modern technology can turn a cold, lifeless vacuum into a routine, comfortable path home.